It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Okay, we are live. Central Texas. We are so happy to be here. We're actually going out to the entire world right now, powered by the Rogue Media Network, the Pete Sousa Show on YouTube. But we are based in Central Texas, the 21st floor of the Alico building. Hey, Mike, can you do me a favor? Mike, can you just turn that monitor so I can't see myself? Yeah. No, not right now. Thanks so much. Yeah, I don't like looking at myself. It's funny because the Pete Sousa Show today, by the way, we're going to talk to Dan Engelman a little bit, take it to the bank with Dan. I want his opinion on a lot of different football games, NFL, college, and high school coming up this weekend. We need his picks. The guy's hot. And then we're going to talk to Cam Stewart in the last block, talk a little Patriots Jets tonight, a little Aaron Hernandez documentary after I watched the first two episodes. I had Mike turn the monitor because working in TV for a while, I like, by the way, it's so interesting, right? Like I was thinking like, man, this is a while back when I started the podcast on sobriety. I love that there was no visual. You could just talk because like, look, I'm insecure about how I look. And on being on camera all the time, it kind of makes you a little whacked out. And I thought, man, finally, maybe if I do like the podcast stuff, I won't have to like, and play by play. Of course, you're barely on camera, so it's great. Well, yeah, that'll be fine though. I'll have like a digestible amount of my own mug out there to the rest of the human race. Well, you come over to Rogue Media Network and you walk down to the bathroom and it's on camera. So here we are. The last thing I want to do is have to look at myself while I do the show. But as we continue to flourish here over at the Rogue Media Network, we've got confidence monitors. Those are the monitors you call when you see yourself while you're talking. And that's just something I'm not looking forward to doing. I feel like it creates inhibitions, and I don't want any inhibitions. We're going to talk today about Dancing with the Stars, too. And we are going to talk off the top. I do want to talk a little Jets, Patriots, and then get into the Cowboys before we turn it over to Dan and Cam. I'm excited for tonight's Thursday night football game on Amazon. A big reason behind it, truthfully, is because of Al Michaels and because it is the New York Jets and the New England Patriots. Now, I want to be very clear with you. I have a very skewed way of looking at things. I look at things through the prism of 12-year-old Pete. 11-year-old Pete. I don't know why that is. Well, I think I do know why it is, because like when you're that young, everything is so fresh and new. I was obsessed with sports. Sports television was crashing into my life. Monday Night Football was a huge part of that. And Al Michaels at that time was a huge part of Monday Night Football. He was Monday Night Football's play-by-play guy from 86 to 2005. And that is the better part of my as I matriculated as a young man. He took over when I was 8 years old. And I was looking through, and we'll talk a little about this, but about the history of Monday Night Football and some of their broadcasters. But I was so excited about this game through the prism of being a kid, and not even so much a kid. The Patriots sucked when I was a kid, but they are a storied franchise. The Jets suck. They just suck. But I do get excited about the Big Apple and teams playing in New York, the New York City metropolitan area. And the whole Aaron Rodgers thing really kind of leans and feeds into that. But now we're going back in the time machine now. And it shows this clip I'm about to show you. I think it is a real, how you have when you're a kid, you have memories of stuff, right? And you're like, that was just the most wonderful moment. I hit a home run in my little league game. I cleared the bases and we won the game. Well, really what happened was there were 3 errors and you actually hit a single. And you scored on 3 errors, right? And it wasn't a home run, and there was nobody at the game. And you didn't win, actually. You only lost by 4. But we remember it differently, right? That's the case in everybody's life. let's take a look at the beginning of Monday Night Football. This is the Jets and the Patriots, Week 2, 1987. Now, the interesting part about this game in particular is there was really like a lot of excitement about it, but there was a dark cloud over the game because the next day the NFL will go on strike for about 6-7 weeks. But Zach Burke on the Wheels of Steel is going to play a portion of that intro. Go ahead, Zach.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Frank Gifford, and welcome to Giant Stadium here in the Meadowlands of New Jersey for a meeting of two longtime rivals from the old AFL, the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. A season shortened to 9 games, and that is exactly the kind of situation we're in. Al Michaels, it is critical at the moment. We are not holding anything back from you. We do not know anything special. We will know more at halftime.
Well, the lights going out was a precursor. You know, Frank, I was thinking yesterday the players had to be somewhat distracted because of all of the talk about the strike. Tonight they are really distracted.
By the way, I cut up that segment. So Frank Gifford wasn't saying like Al Michaels, we're not holding anything back from you. He was talking about the strike and the possibility that it was going to begin the next day. And he was saying ABC and us in our coverage, we're not holding anything back from you. And I clipped it a little bit so you can see Al Michaels. And, you know, the graphics there, the coverage of the game, that's just like a drop in the bucket. You know, the way that they used to come on camera. And again, I wanted to share some of this footage with folks, with you guys. And that was before the that was like a year, I think, before that. So they just had some regular ABC Monday Night Football intro. And then they go into, I mean, that I cut Frank Gifford. So it was in Frank Gifford's deal that he got to bring the show on the air. That's like a fact. He wanted, when Al Michaels joined, Frank was like, that's fine. Because they're like, Al's going to be the play-by-play guy now. But you'll still get to bring us on the air. Because Gifford was the play-by-play guy when it was him, Don Meredith, and Howard Cosell. More on Cosell in a little bit. But Frank Gifford talks for like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes even, where it's like, if you're watching that game as a football fan, you're like, all right, enough with the Frank Gifford. It was a little much. Cosell, by the way, used to call Gifford Rune Arledge, Rune's Bobo, because he was so tight with Rune Arledge. And Cosell was just so disparaging of any of his colleagues at ABC that he used to say he's Rune's Bobo. So Frank always brought them on the air, but he talked for way too long. And then they turn it over for Al Michaels, and Michaels talks for way too long. And then Dan Dierdorf comes on for way too long. And it was it's funny. We have this situation now where we don't really like our play-by-play guys. Like, you know, like for me calling games, like the opens, even if it's on ESPN and I'm calling like a college hoops game, they're never that long. Max 3 minutes, 4 minutes max, you know, and you bring in the color analyst, he talks, maybe you talk about one more thing. You show the players on camera. It's not like, hey, here's what we think. You're only going to see us. What we think matters. People would lose their minds if we came on to like a regular season game, and that's what happened. Even unless it's deemed a pregame show, then it's different. And then just like you hear like their voices, Mike and Cam and Zach were kind of joking around. You hear Frank Gifford talking. It's like, I'll tell you something to say. And he's got that like old school, like way that he talked. And even Al Michaels, it's almost like, and at this time, Michaels had been in the big leagues for like 15 years. He's still like, is kind of high pitched, right? And he's just one of the all-time legends. It goes to show that I clearly don't have a very clear memory of what that was like. I was a little kid watching my black and white television, sneaking in Monday Night Football, because it started at 9:00 Eastern back then, when I should have been in bed. And it was like the most romantic thing, exciting thing in the world, to watch these guys. And I really felt like it was almost like when you go back, I won't even say this, because when I go back and watch Johnny Carson, it still is hilarious. But I remember if I was ever able to watch Johnny Carson, it was like my parents were either way too drunk or I was up way too late for some reason, like sneaking it in. So that was pretty cool, just to kind of be reminded that like we got it pretty good now. You know, the way that sports on television has gotten better, a lot better. Forget about the new ways that we're able to watch the game, right? I mean, I'm not even talking about angles, graphics, access. I'm just talking about like, boy, these guys were feeling themselves, the talent back in the day. As far as Howard Cosell and Al Michaels, listening to Al Michaels' book, he talks about like that was when, I mean, these guys were treated like kings. Everywhere they went, it was standard to roll around in a stretch limo. The behavior of Howard Cosell, unbelievable. I'll tell you one thing. And before we get back to the Monday Night Football stuff, there was one story that Al Michaels told. I'll tell you two, Howard Cosell stories for really quickly. So Al Michaels tells the one story about where they're doing a game, and it's Tommy Lasorda is coming in to join them for postseason baseball. So it's Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, and Tommy Lasorda. And this is amazing. Like it was a St. Louis Cardinals game, and this guy, Ken Boyer, had died from cancer, and he was a St. Louis Cardinals legend. So as they're sitting there introing the game, they show, this is like the intro to the game, right? So they're not on camera right now. And they're showing the field, and this kid is throwing a first pitch, and Cosell just steals the moment. He's like, look right there. Those are the children of the great Ken Boyer. Not even Stan Musial, not Lou Brock. And he goes through all these guys that were great St. Louis Cardinals. And he's saying their middle names, you know, not even Louis Philip Brock, not even Stan William Musial, whatever they are, you know, the greatest Cardinal of all time that reflects the St. Louis organization is Ken Boyer. And Al Michaels goes on to say, you know, Howard loved giving a monologue because he would just steal the show. And then right before the commercial break, he's like, a true tragedy. He fought cancer, tooth and nail. We'll be right back. And so they go to commercial, and Tommy Lasorda, all of a sudden, he's in the booth with them calling the game, and they hear sniffles. And Al Michaels like, so they look down, and there's Tommy Lasorda, and Tommy Lasorda is like tearing up and crying. And Howard Cosell is like, Tommy, what's wrong? And he's like, Howard, Ken Boyer was my roommate in the minor leagues for a whole year. He was such a good friend of mine. He meant so much to me. Only you could do it like that. That was the best eulogy I've ever heard. Thank you so much. And Cosell looks at him. He goes, there's like 5 seconds till they go back on air. He goes, hey, Tommy, let's get one thing straight. Kenny Boyer was a fucking prick. And then they go back on the air, and he said Al Michaels was like, it really got Tommy Lasorda like loose, and he didn't do it on purpose. Cosell didn't. He loved being right about everything, about like, hey, you think he was great, he was actually a prick, and I knew everybody's middle name. Then the last Cosell story I heard, I had no idea. The guy used to drink, like Michael said, an aquarium's worth of vodka, and he said they were doing a game in Kansas City, and Cosell would basically he would prepare for the game in the bar at this like Alameda hotel. It's called the Alameda something hotel in Kansas City, not like Alameda, California. That's what I was thinking. It is Kansas City. And he would show up and he would drink all game long, like a big cup of vodka, like would be poured and poured. And he said Howard could really hold his liquor, but he said on this one night, it was just too much. And he kept saying that they were going to bunt when it wouldn't make any sense. And finally, Michaels went to Roone Arledge and was like, look, I can't work with a guy who gets ready for the game in the bar of the hotel. And he think he worked one more year with Cosell, and then that was it. But back to Monday Night Football. I'm all over the place here, but those stories just popped into my head. The Monday Night Football play-by-play guys. And this is why I think I get so excited. Let's read them off to you. from the very beginning, from the very first game, which included the New York Jets. I know that, the Jets and the Browns in 1969. Keith Jackson was your play-by-play guy, okay? Then it was Frank Gifford. Then after Frank Gifford, of course, Michaels comes in. And when Michaels was working postseason baseball, it will be Frank Gifford. Mike Tirico then takes over for Michaels in 2006. Obviously, Tirico, amazing. Sean McDonough takes over after that, 2016 to 2017. Then Joe Tessitore, one of the best college football play-by-play guys out there. It didn't work on Monday Night Football. I think it was more the crew than it was Joe Tess. But in 2019, he was gone. So then Steve Levy. I've forgotten about Steve Levy. He was 2020 and 2021. And then Joe Buck takes over. I mean, that's an esteemed list, man. Keith Jackson, Frank Gifford, Al Michaels, Mike Tirico, Sean McDonough, Joe Buck. Woo! Okay. But let's do the color commentators really quickly. Howard Cosell, obviously I mentioned. That was used from 70 to 83. He didn't work with Al Michaels. Don Meredith had 2 separate stints. Fred the Hammer Williamson, only preseason in 1974. You know him as an actor, probably in some of his work. Recent movie, Dawn Till Dusk. I know he was in that. Alex Karras from Webster. He also played for the Lions and got in a lot of trouble gambling. Fran Tarkenton, obviously. And then from 83 to 85. By the way, 1983 through 83 to 85 was OJ. Okay, so it was OJ from 83 to 85. Look out. And then in 1985, it was Al Michaels, OJ Simpson, and Joe Namath. They were that was your Monday Night Football team. I bet those guys went out and had some fun. Maybe a murderer's row. If for the women, I guess. Oh, OJ, sorry. Then Lynn Swan, he would fill in sometimes. And then the bigger names and for the longer stints, Dan Dierdorf, 87 to 98. Boomer Esiason, 98 and 99, famously did not get along with Al Michaels. Then Fouts, 2000 to 2001. Can't forget Dennis Miller from 2000 to 2001. He was with Fouts. That booth was rough, man. And somehow Al Michaels kind of held it together. Then Michaels got to work with John Madden. Then it was Joe Theismann who took over. Joe Theismann came about when Tirico came on. So remember, Tirico was Monday Night Football for 2006, 2015. I'd forgotten that. And then you got Jaws, John Gruden, Booger McFarland, Jason Witten. That was a rough one. Brian Greasy and Lou Riddick, they were with Steve Levy, and now Troy Aikman. So it's interesting in a sense where there was sort of outside of, I guess, Howard Cosell, Don Meredith. Let's see who else here. Dan Dierdorf, of course. And you consider Frank Gifford. It was kind of a revolving door outside of that. But man, the play-by-play guys, unbelievable. And maybe that's why I have such a romantic, like I said, romantic is a word I've used, such a romantic feel for that. All right, we're going to move on now to something that's not so romantic, something that kind of like jumped out at me and I wasn't crazy about. And I'm not a Dancing with the Stars fan. But it came across my radar that Anna Delvey, her from the Netflix special, was a total con artist, right? She was a convicted felon. She went to prison. She really legit con artist. And the thing that bothered me about seeing her on Dancing with the Stars, I'm sure there's more to the story about why she's on it, but I got total sticker shock on this. I'm like, this chick is just a complete fraud. And so it drove me crazy that now she's on Dancing with the Stars. Dwight Howard was someone who I was like, isn't he a little like third rail right now? But okay. And now Anna Delvey is on. I want you to hear, and this is just like, this is a reflection of the world we live in right now. Welcome to 2024. Zach Burke. This is Anna Delvey and her partner. Guy's last name is Sousa. So props to him, not Sousa, but close enough. And listen to this guy. Very, very, very forthright about her skills. Zach, go ahead.
It was exciting. I was a little bit nervous. I feel like I could have done much better during my dance, but I also never performed live, so it was my first time performing in front of audience.
How do you feel about her performance? She honestly messed up a couple of steps, but for her first time being in front of an on-camera audience, like, she did a really good job. But for me, it's really good to see how she reacts to all that so I can better accommodate to that.
And you are kind of coming in with like all these preconceived notions about you. What are you hoping to show fans throughout this journey on Dancing with the Stars?
I will get to show them a different side of myself, and hopefully people will give me a chance to move on with my life because I paid my restitution and I served my time. Yeah.
And we bedazzled the ankle monitor. It seems to match your current outfit. You want to show it?
That's really, what can you say after that? The only thing I can say in her defense is that she brings up a good point. She paid her debt to society. But, you know, and I guess that is like a one-way ticket. Do not stop. Go directly to Dancing with the Stars. So I thought that whole thing just kind of grabbed me. I thought that was hilarious. And then Dwight Howard being on Dancing with the Stars is a whole nother can of worms for another time. I'll tell you what, it is time to take it to the bank. Dan Ingham is in the house of First National Bank of Central Texas. Stick around. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
It is time to take it to the bank with Dan Ingham, First National Bank of Central Texas, back in the house. His Thursday appointment. Dan used to call this Thirsty Thursday back in Stillwater when he was a kid.
The wormy dog.
Now he
OGs will understand that reference right there. So.
Now he calls it Thursday.
That's right. And I forgot my bedazzled ankle monitor. So, I guess I'll bring it next time.
Does Julie, your wife, does she watch Dancing with the Stars?
I don't think so. No, that's not her thing. She's into some reality shows, but not that one. No.
Yeah, no, me neither. But that one jumped out at me. We want to talk to you about Oklahoma State. We'll do that in a little bit because that game with Utah is so enticing. I want to start, though, on the home front. Baylor and Colorado, a game that has become very intriguing. And the reason it's intriguing to me is because I really don't know how, like, anything could happen. Like, expect the unexpected. Your thoughts going into this game?
I think I'm with you. I don't have a great feel for this game. I might be leaning towards Baylor, though, just because I think that Baylor defense has looked pretty good the past couple of weeks. Honestly, going back to second half on with Utah, and really they slowed down Air Force. Again, I know the Air Force isn't a great offensive team, but that defense with Dave Aranda kind of calling all the plays, and essentially he's the defensive coordinator right now, has looked pretty good. And so I think he's going to dial up all kinds of pressure on Sanders and Colorado. Colorado still has a pretty weak offensive line. So I think that's huge. If Baylor can get to Sanders early and often, I think they can win this game. I don't know that Baylor's offense is great. With Sawyer as the quarterback, I think they move the ball a little bit better, but I wouldn't call that offense dynamic just yet. But I think they can score enough points to win.
See, that's my concern. Is I think their offense was so lackluster in the first half against Air Force, and they did pick it up a little bit. I'm just curious as to how they're going to score points. Like, what's their calling card? Is it that rotation of running backs? Is it Sawyer Robertson finding a rhythm? I haven't seen any consistency there yet. So as somebody who follows Baylor, that's a big concern.
I think I want to see Sawyer run more. He can run a little bit. In fact, and I wouldn't be surprised if you say a package at some point for Finn, maybe near the goal line where he can run the ball, a run pass option. I'd love to see something like that. But I'll go back to something a lot of folks who've been watching this team tell me since August. This is a much better group of wide receivers. So get them the ball somehow. And I think that's why they made the change at quarterback. So if Sawyer can continue to get the ball, the wide receivers improve on what we saw, because he was pretty shaky, I thought, in the first half, looked much better in the second half, but get the ball to your playmakers. Now, you're talking about Colorado, though. Yes, they have a bad offensive line, but they probably have the two best players in the game in Hunter and Sanders. So, I mean, two potential first-round picks. So anytime you have guys who are going to play on Sundays on offense, that makes you nervous if you're Baylor.
Dude, two potential top 10, maybe top 5 picks.
They're special.
Which is crazy.
Hunter is a freak. I mean, to do what he does, I don't know. I'm sure someone has, because every team does this at that level. They track how many steps a guy, how much they run. I would love to see what he does in a game. His conditioning must be out of this world.
Yeah, and I mean, playing like 80% of the snaps, 90% of the snaps. That's
it's pretty wild.
You've been around the Baylor program for a while. You've seen so many different coaches come and go. Your feel for Dave Arand has got to be pretty good at this point. Do you feel like this is Sawyer Robertson's team now going forward?
Yes, I think that's why they made it. I mean, I think they had a quick hook and made the change. I know Finn was hurt, but he was available to play. Let's be honest. He was able to play last week if needed. I'm not saying he's not 100%, but they made a change because they think Sawyer gives them the best chance to win, and that's why he's out there, frankly.
All right, Oklahoma State and Utah. This is the one who I think a lot of Big 12 fans have circled for Saturday. You're obviously a Cowboy at heart. What's your brain telling you going into this one? I'm not asking for any picks yet.
No, that's all right.
Okay, but this is one you talk about. Alan Bowman, who, by the way, dude, I was in here taking a crap on him early preseason talking to you.
Yeah,
he's been outstanding. 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, thrown for nearly 1,000 yards. How pleasant as a surprise has he been for you?
Very much so, because I think intellectually you wonder, all right, he's a 7th-year player. How much better can he really get? Well, clearly you can improve. And you think about it, he went like a 3-year period where he didn't play hardly any game time. He played mop-up duty at Michigan, and he was hurt at the end of Texas Tech. So you think about it, he's still getting better, just like a 19-year-old freshman or a 20-year-old sophomore will. So I guess that maybe explains that. Also, it's the best group of wide receivers that Mike Gundy has had in several years. He's got a couple guys that are going to play on Sundays. Your quarterback looks a lot better when you throw to guys who are really good. That helps as well. But he's been a revelation. And honestly, because teams are loading the box, daring him to throw the ball, and he's delivered.
Yeah, and that's I talked to this Dion Amade. He played for Oklahoma State. Yeah. Probably he was after you were there.
Sure.
Yeah. Aging you and me, we got no shot anymore.
Yeah.
But so he mentioned that Alan Bowman worked so hard, you know, in his 7th year.
Yeah.
You do find it like when a guy's in his 5th year, 6th year, can they get any better? He is one of those guys who has gotten better. And Dion Amade was saying it's because of the work he continued to put in, going to any quarterback camp, any quarterback coach, any guru he could over the summer to get better. Another thing Amade told us is, and it's not like taking you inside the coach's room, they're loading the box against Ollie Gordon. But at some point, this guy's got to get untracked. Like, what do you think that takes? He's one of the best running backs in the country. Mel Kiper has him going 4th as far as running backs in the draft.
So I think it's the guys up front. Again, I'm not an expert, but I've watched enough. I don't think it's because he's missing holes. He might be. I'm sure he has at some point. I saw a stat last week that in terms, because, with Pro Football Focus, they stat everything now. And he was like second in America in like yards after being touched, or like, your yard first time, initial contact. So he's breaking tackles just to get up to that, whatever, 3.5 yards he's getting per carry right now. So I think they're trying to find ways to get him the ball in creative ways, like pitches on the outside, use him in the passing game because he's a good pass catcher. But it all starts with the 5 guys up front who are all seniors who have not really lived up to the what folks thought they'd be doing so far.
What type of environment is Utah going into in Stillwater? They never played there. These teams haven't played in 45 years.
It's crazy. And, it's such a cool matchup because you got 2 coaches that have been there for 20 years at their school. They've done it with 2- and 3-star guys, and Kyle Winningham and Mike Gundy. They're loyal to their school. They've done a lot with less. And so it's a cool matchup in that way. It's going to be a really fun atmosphere. I think the weather's supposed to be nice. It's going to be a 3:00 game, which is just kind of perfect because it gives you plenty of time to tailgate, go to Eskimo Joe's, get in what you need, and then go to the game. It'll be a really cool atmosphere. It'll be sold out. Every single game is sold out in Stillwater this year already, and so it'll be a really cool atmosphere.
Yeah, what Mike Gundy is doing is just amazing.
Yeah, when I was there, they were lucky if they got 30,000 there, and if the stadium was full, it was because Nebraska had half their fans there, or OU, something like that. Yeah,
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I saw it yesterday, and I forget already. Who was the coach before Mike Gundy?
Les Miles.
Les Miles.
Yeah.
That's it.
He
Yeah,
went to LSU.
Yeah, so it was like, and Gundy inherited a program that was by no means.
He was Les Miles' offensive coordinator.
Okay,
so. He's been at Oklahoma State since he was 18, all but like 3 years, I want to say. He actually was an assistant at Baylor for a year, then went to Maryland for a few years, and then Les Miles hired him to come back and be his OC.
Unbelievable. Okay, let's go to the Cowboys before you get your picks. It's hard to not talk about spreads when you're talking about this game. They're a 1-point underdog at home against an 0-2 Ravens team. Make sense of that for me.
It means Baltimore's the better team. And getting a point at home makes you feel kind of good if you were going to bet the Cowboys. But I got to say, it's hard to imagine Baltimore going 0-3. So my gut tells me this is a rough game for the Dallas Cowboys, especially defensively. The problem is not Dak Prescott, the offense. Yeah, they could have played better last week, but they had to answer New Orleans score for score if they were going to stay in that game. It was over late second quarter. So it's really up to the defense. Mike Zimmer, who looked so good against Cleveland, and looks so bad, which just proves once again, we say it at every level, it's a week-to-week kind of deal. You can't think about what happened last week and think it has any kind of factor necessarily on what's going to happen the week before.
Is the Cowboys defense worse this year than it was last year?
Gosh. Right now I'd say it's a wash because of what we saw in the first game. They look great against Cleveland. Yeah. So I looked up I think they're still in the top 10 in the NFL in defensive rankings, but that's because they played so well the first game and so awful that second game against New Orleans. So I'd say to be determined. Incomplete. How about?
All right, they get an incomplete. I got a couple of those at Richmond.
Yeah.
They never went over too well. All right, let's get to the picks. Taking it to the bank. First of all, let's recap last week.
So last week, I'm trying to remember now. I should remember this.
I should remember.
All right. Oh gosh, I had the Bengals, and I said straight up, but they ended up. I think they covered against Kansas City, and I'm already forgetting the college one. I should have remembered that. Oh
yeah, well, hold on. So if you won, I would imagine you would remember.
Yes, I went 1-1 in my 2 games. How about that?
All right, there you go.
So let's just say I'm 3-1. How about that?
Memphis.
That's right.
State,
that's right.
dude.
That's right. So. And so real, if
you forget that,
it's right. Because I'm really good. I guess I just forgot. I have so many good picks. So if you can, but I did say they'd win straight up. So in terms of the Bengals, so I can't say I got the points, but so I guess I'm 3-1 on the year so far. So my 2 games this week, I'll pick one college and one pro.
Right.
Homer alert right here. I like Oklahoma State against Utah. They've won 7 straight games at home. They're a 2.5-point underdog. I think they win that. And even though they're given a couple of points as it stands right now, because that line's moved crazily over the last few days. But I think the way Alan Bowman is playing, I think the home field, I think not a 100% Cam Rising, all signs point to Mike Gundy winning again against a very solid Utah team.
We talked offline a little bit before this. What do you make of that line going back and forth, back and forth?
It's crazy.
Walk me through the evolution.
Well, it started out like Oklahoma State, like a 1.5, 2-point favorite on Saturday. Then it moved all the way to Utah being a favorite by a point or so, point or two. And now today it's back to Oklahoma State being a 2.5-point favorite. So it's swung 4 or 5 points in like 24 hours or so, which tells me either they know something about an injury for Utah, maybe it's Cam Rising, I don't know, or a lot of the smart money, quote unquote smart, because it's still, you got to play the games. I get that, has put a lot of money on Oklahoma State, which is moving the line this way. They were just waiting to get a few points and take Oklahoma State. And a lot of money may have came in Oklahoma State possibly.
All right. So we got Oklahoma State, second pick. Who we got?
Houston Texans, 2.5-point favorites over the upstart Minnesota Vikings, who have looked okay. They've looked okay, but they haven't played anybody like the Houston Texans, who I think are really, really good. CJ Stroud is so good. He is so good. I mean, if you're a Carolina Panther fan, you just want to puke when you see him playing right now for the Texans. But I think 2.5 points, not enough. I like the Texans to cover and beat the Vikings this weekend.
Do you feel like this is a year? Clearly, I think you do after your comments. But and it's interesting to hear from somebody like you who I trust. But this organization and this team, are they ready to turn a corner?
I think they did last year. Yeah. I mean, maybe a year ahead of schedule. Because they were like, if you remember, they were kind of a hot mess for a couple of years. And then it's amazing what a good quarterback and a good head coach can do. You look a lot better. It covers up any kind of warts you have, any kind of deficiencies you might have. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they're still in the same conference as Patrick Mahomes. So are they going to go to the Super Bowl? I wouldn't call them a favorite, but can they win their division? They probably should. Can they win a game or two in the playoffs? Absolutely.
All right, so we're going with the Texans and we're going with Oklahoma State.
That's right.
I like how you're efficient with your picks. You're not all over the place. No. You whittle it down to 2 that we can take to the bank.
Yes, that's right. Take it to the bank.
One more thing for you. But off the top of this, I was talking about tonight's game because I'm so excited about it. And really the reason I'm excited about it is because it's 2 franchises that have some history. And it's also Al Michaels on the call.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite play-by-play guy?
Man,
because Michaels is probably top 3 for me, easily.
So Iron Eagle has really come up as high on my list. But I would say, golly, by sport overall, I would say Al Michaels. But gosh, Joe Buck has gotten so good at football. So maybe Joe Buck, because he's now got so many big games of Monday Night Football. So maybe Joe Buck at this point, and he could go back and do baseball today if he wanted to.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was talking to another play-by-play guy, a guy who's far more successful than I yesterday. And we were talking about just like the landscape of play-by-play. And we talked about Iron Eagle. He mentioned like, hey, if Iron Eagle was in Houston, Texas, he probably wouldn't have had the ascent that he's had. And he said, and this wasn't a shot at Iron Eagle. He said, it's about his charm. He said, he's not threatening at all.
No,
he really is like there's a great vibe about him. Mm-hmm. I don't think not only is he welcoming to us as fans, but I think like to other executives and so everybody really loves him.
Isn't that a real gift too?
Yeah.
I mean, and that comes across whether you're on radio, which he can do well, or a TV broadcast. That's a real skill. You can make up for any kind of other deficiencies, which I'm not saying he does. But I mean, if you have that, that's a pretty good place to start. If you do the homework and you know the facts and you have a good cadence, but if you have a personality that is warm and comes across, it goes a long way.
Hey, you want to keep that money safe. You know where to take it. First National Bank of Central Texas. Dan Ingham, we'll see you next Thursday. Appreciate it, dude.
You bet. Thanks, Pete.
All right, we'll step aside. We'll come back with Cam Stewart on the Pete Sousa Show.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
It is the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network. We are joined now by Teddy Bruschi. Actually, it's Cam Stewart.
Less strokes.
Less what?
Strokes. Although I probably deserve the strokes more than Teddy Bruschi did.
What do you mean less strokes? Oh my god!
Like he had a couple, I have none.
Cam, I was like, what is
You
he
were
talking
too hung up on our porn conversation earlier to remember what stroke
That's
we're
for the
talking
Cam,
about.
That's for the Cam Stewart Show. All right,
The Cam Show. Yep.
The Cam Show. Sorry,
Dude, you should have heard. I recorded with Mosley before I came onto my show. You should have heard what he called this network.
What?
It was like, we'll have that on the network, Sports Rogue Network tomorrow.
That's our guy, dude.
Yeah. I said it to say that Teddy was in great shape. I'm not. So.
Yeah, Teddy was.
And he seems like a nice guy. So.
Yeah, unbelievable linebacker. You know, he was. I think he was a defensive lineman at Arizona.
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He
Much
really,
like Pete Sousa. Yeah.
Um,
He was. Desert Swarm defense.
Desert Swarm was. They were amazing. They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I remember that Sports Illustrated preview issue. Yeah, they were. Gosh, Dick Tomey was their coach. They had it all, and I think they kind of fell flat on their face that year. They weren't.
Yeah, they did. They won like 9 games or something.
Yeah, but they were expected to be like a top 5,
Or like
team.
8-3 or something.
Yeah. All right, so Cam, I want to talk to you about tonight's game: Jets and Patriots in East Rutherford.
Yeah.
6-point favorite are the New York Jets. By the way, one thing I meant to mention off the top of this show, I forgot. Aaron Rodgers, this is really his first home game. He played 4 snaps in his first. This is the second game he's scheduled to start at home, and he's only had 4 snaps or 3 snaps, I think.
Yeah, I took the under. I think he's only going to get 2 this time.
Shut up. The over-under is, by the way, the over-under is, I think, 39.
That might even be high.
You think so?
39. Yeah, that puts you at what? 24-15.
Yeah.
23-17 puts you at 40. Yeah, that's about right.
Are you believing what they're saying about Aaron Rodgers in a sense where, hey, this guy, he's had a rough start. And I think we live in a hyperbolic universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're 1-1. That's awesome. And I think he has showed enough in 2 games to lead on that he could possibly lead this team to the playoffs for sure. What do you think about Aaron Rodgers and, looking into the
Are you asking me if he's done?
Yeah.
You asking me if he's done?
Yeah.
I don't know. He could be. The guy's 40 years old.
Yeah.
But we are, downplaying the fact that he's coming off a major injury.
Yeah.
And that he hadn't played with this team before said major injury. Did he play any in the preseason? I don't know. I doubt it.
No.
So we do got to kind of give him some time here. He's no Brady, but he's still pretty darn good. This Rodgers guy, you might catch on in this league. I don't think it'll be very easy for him tonight. I think the Patriots defense is legit. Like probably somewhere between 5 and 10 in the league. And it's too bad. They have Juwan Bentley was playing really well. He's out for the year, it looks like. And they can get after the quarterback kind of like Keon White can. They don't really have, they kind of plug up some other guys, whether like Anthony Jennings can get there, but Keon White has been a monster for the Patriots on the defensive line through 2 games, Pete. They took away his nose tackle and his opposite rusher, and he's been incredible. He's been awesome. So is Rodgers done? I don't know. If I had to bet, I would say no.
Okay.
But either way, whether he's done or not, I don't think he's going to have a terrific game tonight.
Yeah, I
just think I think that's the Patriots defense, though.
No, do you have any misgivings about the Patriots playing well this year?
I don't expect them.
You don't.
No, I was really down before the season.
Because I haven't talked to you about the Patriots this year.
I was really down before the season
No
on the
kidding,
Cam
dude.
show. I was saying like 1 or 2 wins, man. Like
Okay.
with what we saw in joint practices in the preseason looked that bad. Everything we thought was going to be bad seemed to be even worse. But the way they played through 2 games, first off, they very well could be 2-0. I think they threw away that game against Seattle,
Okay.
who's probably a playoff team. Seattle was not a bad team there. And the difference was, I think Seattle had more weapons than the Patriots did. Patriots completed 3 passes to wide receivers the whole game. Like, that's not sustainable. But I saw a 1 or 2 win team in the preseason. Now I see a 5 or 6 win team there.
Okay.
Which is something. I mean, the good news is you don't need the number 1 pick. And now in football, like, it's becoming like every year, like the top 3 guys are going to be quarterbacks. You just need the best tackle in the draft. And you can get that at 5, 6, 7, 10 even. So I see a 5 or 6 win team there.
And what about the Jets? Do you feel like this is a team? You talked about Rodgers, but like long term, I always talk about my man Joe Douglas from the University of Richmond being their GM, and I pull for the Jets, but it's an I don't know so far.
Well, let me say this about the Jets. I think their defense is better than what they've showed the first few games. They're in the bottom quarter of the league against the run, which I think plays into the Patriots' hands tonight. But overall, I think that Jets defense is better than they've shown. I love Breece Hall in the backfield. I think they've got good weapons. I think they've got a top 5 quarterback all time. And I think the other team that should have won the division over them lost their quarterback potentially forever. And now they have to play Skylar Thompson. So the seas have parted for the Jets here in the AFC East. So all that to say, I cannot wait to see how the Jets are going to fuck this up. I cannot wait. Oh, Pete, you don't know how much delight this will give me just to watch the Bills win the AFC East, because somehow the Jets will fuck this up. I actually think the Jets are the best team in the division. On paper, they are, especially if Rodgers is healthy, man. Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. Without Rodgers getting injured, how can they screw it up? Really? You said you love Breece Hall.
I do. Well, if their defense doesn't get any better at stopping the run,
yeah, that was.
I mean, they'll just get ran all over all season.
I mean, I didn't see the game against Tennessee. The San Francisco 49ers game was like jarring. How bad they were.
Yeah, Tennessee wasn't much better. If they still had Henry, they probably would have won that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was bad. It was really, and I know Shanahan can scheme, but come on.
Yeah.
Like that was really bad. And obviously if Rodgers got hurt, that would be the biggest reason why. But I'm not saying he's done, but he hasn't looked sharp so far, and he's been on the field.
Yeah.
I think there's a world where Rodgers is just meh. I mean, like I don't want to just pull this example just because of where they were before, but like you look at Brett Favre and that season with the Jets, and he started off the season really well, and then he got back into old Brett Favre habits, and it was really tough down the stretch, and then he went to Minnesota and was good again.
Yeah.
It's something in the water there, Pete. It is something with the Jets. They'll find a way. Yeah, the most likely reason would be Rodgers getting hurt, because that seems to be what happens to them a lot. But,
all right, I want to talk to you about Friday Night Lights.
Oh, hell yeah.
So you went to the movie last night.
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't go?
No, I didn't go.
Okay, so there was a showing here, 20th anniversary of the movie Friday Night Lights. Cam said he was going to go.
I went. I went.
He said he was going to go till Zach figured out that there was nobody else going, and I think you felt weird about going.
No, I you know me, I probably would have preferred that.
So why didn't you go?
I don't know. I've seen it a million times. I could watch it for free and streaming. I did have like this. I was kind of ahead of the chains in one of my podcasts, so I had a chance to kind of get some work done.
Okay.
So I ended up doing that.
So I was
getting high at home,
of course. So, which continues a 6-night flurry.
Yes, which is done. We're gonna take a couple nights off. Saturday I might still. I'm not ruling out Saturday. I got to be up. I got to do a post game at like 10:30 at night, so I can't be high for that. But
what time does Baylor game start?
7.
Okay.
Yeah.
10:30.
But like I don't know, man. I take it right before.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hit till after the post-game show. So like 11, I start to feel it. I get nothing to do on Sunday. The Patriots don't play on Sunday. So whatever. I stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that would be strict. That'll be like medicinal purposes. I will be so stressed out.
Okay.
I will be so stressed out.
I'll save you a seat in one of my rooms for you. All right. Like
Sounds
now we're telling ourselves stories and bargaining.
Sounds
well,
good.
that will be for this.
Yesterday was not. Yesterday was for fun.
So West Texas, you spent a lot of time there.
Yeah.
You had a job in Odessa in West Texas. You actually did a story on Boobie Miles. So 20 years from Friday Night Lights, it's so interesting because the only vision I have of Boobie Miles is either from the TV show or the movie, where he was this chiseled star. Life after football has not been good to Boobie Miles. You even kind of add some clarity or brought some clarity to the story about, because I was curious, like, hey, if he didn't blow his knee up when he was a senior, would he have gotten a scholarship? You told me yes, he still would have gotten a scholarship. And you mentioned you had a little bit of a revelation for me
about where he was going to go, how he was going to play, or
where he was going to go.
Yeah, so I did when I did a feature story on Boobie Miles a few years ago. I asked him, because the football nerd in me, and I'm sure you would have had that kind of question too, is like, we heard about all these offers he got, and we heard about it in the movie especially, and I was like, well, where would Boobie Miles have gone? Like, what, I kind of had my own theories, and so I asked him. I said, they mentioned USC, they mentioned Notre Dame, a couple other schools in the movie. Where were you actually going to go? And he told me he was going to go play at Nebraska. Tom Osborne, Veer offense. He was going to be a Husker. There you go. They loved those big bruising backs, and he said Nebraska wanted me bad.
I believe it.
And obviously at the time would have been a pretty damn good place to go.
Let's can I take people behind the scenes of the story you did on him?
Sure, yeah.
So
did you watch it?
Not yet. You just sent it to me 10 minutes ago. So
An hour.
So the story is aired, and it's a feel-good story about Boobie Miles.
Yeah.
And then what happens in the newsroom where you're working at the time?
Yeah, so it was about him coming back to Odessa and how he was going to serve the community, help out students that are in a similar spot that he was in, make sure they get the education he didn't get. And yeah, the next day we get a call to the newsroom. I didn't answer the phone. The news director did. How can you prop up this rapist and put him on your airwaves? Whoa, what does she think I've done? Turns out she was talking about Boobie Miles. And so I had to do some research into this because I knew he had gotten in trouble. I knew he had been to prison at one point. And so I combed the internet to find out what I knew before the story, because it's like, I might be uncomfortable if I know what, and it was like basically a barroom brawl. And I think it was with his cousin or something. He fought a family member and ended up going to prison on an assault charge. And I'm like, okay, it's not good. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's part of this story. And we addressed it in the piece, about his time in prison. And I was like, but nothing about rape, nothing, sexual assault, none of that. And I did 3 more searches, nothing, man. And I'm like, what is this? Did no one report on this? That's what I'm telling my news director. I'm like, there's just no way. And he's kind of agreeing with me. He's like, I searched it too. No one reported on it. And I said, well, I guess I could just go check out the registry just to make sure. Lo and behold, Boobie Miles in the registry, man. And I'm like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. So it turns out, no one reported on it. He failed to register as a sex offender in Odessa and was arrested a few months later, and then had another assault charge, and now he's in prison, 13 years, sentenced last year.
Any other stories, and positive or negative, about some of the personalities from that book, that movie, that you were able to uncover or experience or that you know of?
Well, I'll say this. I wanted to do kind of a bigger story because Boobie was telling me kind of things behind the scenes about the movie and, working with the movie and stuff. And
he did work with the movie.
Yeah, he's in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, he makes a cameo or two in the movie. And, it was kind of a big deal because the people in Odessa hated the book. It really shed some light on what was happening in big time West Texas football, high school football. And so it was they were hesitant to have filming the movie there and some of the players coming back and being in it. And so I was going to do this whole series on that. And he gives me Buzz Bissinger's email and was like, just reach out to Buzz. I'm sure he'll do it. And I reached out to Buzz, and he was, polite about it, but he had said, I've kind of said all I need to say on the Boobie Miles thing. I don't really want to do any of that anymore. I was like, oh, okay. He also gave me Brian Chavez's number, the safety on the team, featured prominently in the movie. And he's now a lawyer in Odessa, and he never even got back to me. and we tried to get in touch with Mike Winchell, couldn't, and I was like, this is interesting. Like, he was a god here, and he doesn't have like a Rolodex of his former teammates that can, come and say a few words about him and the experience
Really
of the
similar
movie.
to Hope Solo.
And yeah, it was just like, huh. And I didn't really think about it at the time. I took him as isolated incidents, and that probably had something to do with it. In fact, Ryan Chavez had a sketchy past as well. He had a charge of breaking and entering to like get into a family member's house, and it was a weird story. And so it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows for all of those guys from Friday Night Lights, even the really smart ones. But I was surprised that looking back on it, I was like, wow, I made him out to be this returning, conquering hero, celebrity to Odessa, and also that he was going to give back and do a really good thing. And not only did he not get to do the good thing because he was not registering as a sex offender, but no one was like, yeah, I'll come talk to you about Booby Miles.
Let me ask you about,
and I love that shit, like that Mojo Mystique, man.
Oh yeah, well, I want to ask you about,
go ahead.
What was the number one disagreement that the folks there in Odessa had with the book? What upset them the most?
It focused on some things that I don't think they wanted getting out there. Have you read the book? I know you've seen the movie.
I've seen the movie. I haven't read the book.
The book's excellent. But it goes into, crime and poverty in Odessa, and the grades that some of these football players got that they probably shouldn't have gotten. Booby Miles is a perfect example of that. I mean, this is a kid who I think they found out later he had some sort of learning disability, and he was not catered to at all. They just stuck him in a class like a no-show job for the mafia. And he just sat in class. They gave him a grade so that he can keep playing football. And like that really hindered his college chances, even if he was healthy. He might not have even been eligible. And so there was a lot of that. There was some racism that was brought to light about the Permian football program, and I'm sure many programs at that time, especially out in West Texas. And so it really did not portray the city nor the program in a positive light. And it was a tough time economically for Odessa. So, I mean, the way they're thinking about it, here's this Yankee from Philadelphia, Buzz Bissinger, coming down wearing his flamboyant shit and sits in our community for a year and then just plasters us like any social hippie liberal Yankee would. And I guess there's some of that, but I'm sure where there was smoke, there was fire within that program in that city.
So they felt like they were sort of betrayed.
Yeah, big time. Like, he couldn't do book signings in Odessa.
Really?
This best-selling book, he couldn't do it in the place it was based in.
Okay. Great stuff.
Man, I loved covering Mojo, man.
Let me last question.
Yeah.
When was the book written? I'm sorry, the movie. Is this like exactly the 20th anniversary?
Yeah, 04. It came out in, I think, October of 04.
October of 04. All right, Mike Hamilton's ready to go. He's like out in the driveway with the engine running of the car. So we've got to go.
God bless Mike. Odessa, man.
Yeah.
I would never live there, but those people are good people.
Darby Brown named her dog Mojo.
That's right.
That's all you need to know. She lived out.
Yeah,
she lived
was
in
out there
Odessa.
before me. Yeah.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network. I'd like to thank Dan Ingham, Cam Stewart, and of course, Mike Hamilton and Zach Burke.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.